So in this how-to video, what I wanted to do is explore the idea of rent vesting and whether it's the right type of strategy for you. Now, every household's different in regards to their financial and personal goals. Rent vesting is the concept whereby you rent where you want to live, but you invest the savings into a portfolio of properties, ultimately giving you a better financial outcome. But not everyone is going to do that, because in the fabric, in our DNA, we're taught to acquire the great Australian dream, and that is of home ownership. So those people who decide to rent vest, in other words, decide to live where they want to live and then go off and invest, is outside of the norm. So the considerations you want to make when looking to rent vest come down to some of the fundamentals about what you're trying to achieve. If you want to get your children into, say, a really great government school, but the price in buying into that marketplace is in the millions, well, it may be better to rent where it's quite low to do so, and then invest that savings as opposed to being able to get into that market. You could also be a young couple with no kids and you're thinking the same thing. Why would we go and buy a property where we have a very large mortgage and we're paying that with our after-tax dollars? Again, we could live where we want to live, pay a lower rent, and then we could turn that surplus cash into an investment strategy. It's really important to understand all the moving parts about why we need to rent vest. So we know that it's obviously live where you want to live. The benefits come in the sense that when we're actually making those savings, we can invest that and we can maximise our returns, because when we're investing, not only do we help support that investment, but also the tenant and the taxman help us in acquiring that asset and maintaining that over the long term. So as that value of that asset grows, eventually it starts to sustain itself in terms of the income is now becoming a passive surplus income for us. Now, there's obviously some challenges around rent vesting, and that is, when we bed down and make a house a home, our landlord could say it's time to move on. So there's no technical security around that. But on the flip side of that is you could just go with the flow. Means you could take the opportunity to live in a certain location for a few years, which meets your lifestyle needs then, and then you could change to another location and explore that. You may even change from, say, house to trying to live in medium or high density accommodation. So there's a lot more flexibility when it is to rent, because we also know that as owner occupiers we have large stamp duties that we have to pay. So there's not that type of flexibility that you get as opposed to just moving and renting. There's still those inconveniences though. We're still going to have to pack those boxes and get them into that removal truck. So those are the types of things you need to consider. So if I was to summarise what I'm talking about here, it's basically saying rent vesting is really technically a financial and wealth creation strategy. It's outside the norm. There's going to be maybe some of your peers who may judge you for not actually owning your own home. There's obviously the negatives around not having that full exemption of capital growth as your principal place of residence, which means that you can't bank that money if you ever choose to sell that property. But the fact is, we have to live somewhere. So we can either own it or we can rent it. But as long as we're looking at the financial goals and we're looking at our personal goals, and I know how frustrating it is for some in certainly our larger cities around being able to afford to live where we want to live. Well, renting is the best way to do that. So if we take examples like New York and all of these mega cities, London is a perfect example. Very few people own, they choose to rent there, but of course they're going to invest some of their money into alternatives, and in our case we're talking about investing in a portfolio of property over time. So it really does come down to your personal circumstances, your financial and personal goals that you're trying to achieve. We know statistically, and when we do the number crunching, you will be financially better off under the current regulations and tax guidelines at the moment. Financially, you will be better off if you rent vested. So the big decision is really that mind shift. So is rent vesting right for you is really a conversation about how comfortable you feel about that. Now, it's a big decision, so I encourage you to seek professional advice from a qualified property investment advisor, because it is all about the numbers, and you don't want to be half engaged in this strategy, because if you decide to do this and then change and you want to own a home eventually, it's going to be an expensive exercise, and the bottom line is you're going to be out of pocket because of those costs of moving in and out. So once you decide it's right for you, you must stay true to that execution. And that's why it's really about sitting down and studying those personal and financial goals. Thanks for watching.